Thank you, Mayor Henderson. We're now live.
Thank you. Welcome everybody to our 29th of April 2025 meeting. In the spirit of open, transparent and accountable governance, this meeting will be live streamed on Council YouTube page. The meeting will also be recorded and made available on Council's website as soon as practicable after the meeting. Council meeting will be conducted tonight in accordance with the Local Government Act 2020, the Minister's Good Practice Guideline MGPG1, virtual meetings, Council's Good Governance Rules and the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. Just at the outset, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners. The Hepburn Shire acknowledges the Dja Dja Wurrung as the traditional owners of the lands and waters on which we live and work. On these lands, the Djara have performed age-old ceremonies of celebration, initiation and renewal. We recognise their resilience through dispossession, and it is a testament to their continuing culture and tradition, which is strong and thriving. We also acknowledge the neighbouring traditional owners, the Wurundjeri to our southeast and the Wadawurrung to our southwest, and pay our respect to all Aboriginal peoples, their culture and law. We acknowledge their living culture and the unique role they play in the life of this region. For anybody who's not aware of our amenities, through the exit door and to the left, if there happens to be anything that's a problem, we've noted down who's in the room. Please don't just leave. If anything happens, just assemble outside and we'll take account of those people. All right. I'll now declare the meeting open and councillors present. All councillors are present. Officers present. We've got our CEO, Mr. Bradley Thomas, Ron Torres, Brooke Holmes, Mr. Bruce Lucas, and our governance person, Ms. Rebecca Smith. Now, I'd just like to ask Councillor Leslie Hewitt if she'd read the statement of commitment on behalf of Council. You may stand up if you wish, Councillor.
We, the councillors of Hepburn Shire, declare that we will undertake on every occasion, carry out our duties in the best interests of the community, and that our conduct shall maintain the standards of the Code of Good Governance, so that we may faithfully represent and uphold the trust placed in this council by the people of Hepburn Shire.
Thank you. Do we have any, no apologies from councillors, any apologies from officers? No apologies. Do we have any conflicts of interest declarations, councillors? Any officers? No conflict of interest. We now move to item 6, which is the confirmation of minutes. And the motion is that the minutes of the ordinary meeting of council held on the 25th of March 2025 and the minutes of the special meeting of council on the 3rd of April 2025 as previously circulated to councillors be confirmed. I'm actually looking for a mover of that. Moved Councillor Hood, seconded Councillor Cornish. Don't need to speak. None of that. All right, if not, I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare that carried unanimously. Now we come to public participation time. This part of the ordinary meeting of council allows for the tabling of petitions by councillors and officers in 30 minutes for the purpose of tabling petitions, responding to questions from members of the community to address council. Community members are invited to be involved in public participation time in accordance with council's governance rule. Individuals may submit written questions or requests to address council to the Chief Executive Officer by 10 a.m. the day before the council meeting. Some questions of an operational nature may be responded to through the usual administrative procedure. Separate forums and council processes are provided for deputations or for making petitions to council. Questions received may be taken on notice, but formal responses will be provided to questioners directly. These responses will also be read out and included within the minutes of the next ordinary meeting. Make them publicly available to all. So the behaviour at council meetings is be respectful, and that means being courteous when addressing council during the public participation time, and directing all comments to the chair, being quiet during proceedings, being respectful towards others present, and respecting their right to their own views. Inappropriate behaviour is interjecting or taking part in the debate, verbal abuse or harassment of a councillor, member of staff, ratepayer or member of the public, or any threats of violence. We now move to petitions. Mr. CEO.
No petitions have been received for tonight's meeting, Mayor.
Request to address council.
We have the one request for council tonight. That's Carolyn Whitehead to speak.
Can I go now?
Yes, please. If you could come up to the lectern, you'd be heard a little bit better.
Timer up here to make sure I stick to 3 minutes. Thank you for the opportunity to address council tonight. I'm talking on the subject of the on-site wastewater management plan, which is up before you. Over the last few years, I personally have had hundreds of hours worth of study of the planning scheme and the various EPA documents that support things like wastewater, such as the EPA Code of Practice, the guidelines for on-site wastewater management, as well as the ministerial guidelines for planning permits in open catchments. I understand as a main impetus the issue regarding the OWMP as it relaxes the 1 in 40 dictated, well, actually guided by the ministerial guidelines, and it gives council the greater flexibility in approving applications that don't necessarily meet that 1 in 40. But the reason why the ministerial guidelines allow this relaxation is because the document is supposed to demonstrate that council has a good understanding of the status of the risks associated with the catchment currently. And it is my opinion, based on all the research that I've done over the last few years, this OWMP does not demonstrate that understanding. And the errors contained within it actually make the clarity of the document less than useful. One example, and I'm going to talk about content now, not just typos, because even though the typos are important for clarity, the content raises some concerns. So for example, one example is the way the development density and land use risk factor bands are presented in section 10.1.1 on page 34. These categories, low, medium, and high, are not supported by any referenced evidence and don't consider land size. According to the document, low risk means fewer than 10 systems, medium risk means 10 to 200 systems, and high risk means more than 200 systems. But is 12 systems, for example, really the same level of risk as 180? And if fewer than 10 systems are located on a very small parcel of land without limited setbacks, that could still present a significant risk. So without context, these categories are misleading. Another issue of inconsistency is in the locality risk ratings between pages 41 and 68. The tables and accompanying risk explanations do not match for 15 of the localities. For instance, on page 66, Newbury's table rates the risk as high, but the explanation says it's low risk. And as mentioned, this is just one of the 15 locality assessment inconsistencies. I mean, no disrespect for the offices involved in the creation of this document, and I understand the pressure they face and the constraints on their time. I offer this information in good faith for the benefit of all stakeholders and for the sake of the protection of the catchment. So I would ask that you not approve the version currently tonight and ask for genuine feedback for the next version.
Thank you, Ms. Whitehead. So we now move to 7.3 questions. The chair will read out responses to questions taken on notice from the last ordinary meeting, then read and respond to new questions received in accordance with the council's governance rules. We'll now hear questions received in accordance with the governance rules. The question 1 is from Cynthia Gowdy.
And the question is, why is council continuing to talk about the redevelopment of Shire offices when there is clearly no funding to do so?
Well, the council has begun a project to assess the feasibility of maximising community use of the town hall, with an option to consolidate and upgrading the building so it will become more of a community hub. The investigation would assess whether the town hall could be refurbished to include a library, along with multi-purpose community spaces to cater for meetings, functions, performances and events. Such a project would require many stages. These include, but are not limited to, architectural advice on the suitability of the site, community input, feasibility designs, concept designs, detailed designs, and of course, funding.
Question 2 is also from Cynthia. Profit or surplus for the first quarter is $10 million. Is this due to a go slow approach in spending, and how does this justify a rate rise?
Okay, well, the answer is we do not have a go slow approach. The main consideration for being that the full year of rates income is raised at the start of each financial year and will reduce towards the end of the financial year. The proposed the proposed rate increase relates to the financial year 2025-26, subject to approval of a higher rate cap applicable of 7% by the Essential Services Commission. If approved, this will be a permanent uplift of 7%, in addition to the 3% under the rate cap. Council also have a number of operational projects that are in progress and will be completed by June 30th of June, or the funds carried forward.
Question 3 is from Ken Warren in person.
Thank you, Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you, you will note that my questions relate to questions that I specifically asked at the last meeting of council. So I'll read out the preamble I have here. At the March meeting of council, I asked 2 separate questions relating to the Creswick Bike Trail. My first question related to the total amount of the project cost, and the answer was as follows. Total capital spend to date, 8.63 million, funded by state government grants, 2.56 million, borrowings as per 23-24 adopted budget, 4.887 million, contributions monetary, 0.354 million, and council contribution, 0.829 million. My second question was, what is the ongoing annual operating costs of the Creswick Bike Trail? The answer provided was the 2024-25 budget for trails maintenance is $223,000, which includes 2 full-time staff members responsible for auditing and maintaining the trails, and a minor allocation for materials and specialist contractor works. My question tonight is in 2 parts. A, given the amount of 4.887 million has been provided by a loan, what is the amount of interest payable on this loan, and why wasn't the interest cost added to the $223,000 above in that answer above? Part B, given the nature of this bike trail and the inherent risks of accidents by young and old testing themselves against the laws of nature, the project should have adequate cover for such high risk use. What are the insurance costs that should also be added to the $223,000 above?
Thank you, Mr. Warren, and I've got the answers here for you. The interest payable for the approved loan of 5.887 million as per the 2023-24 adopted budget equates to $170,000 per year over 10 years, which comes to a total of 1.7 million. It averages out at 170 per year. We don't allocate borrowing costs directly to services or project, and this is consistent with financial practices in local government. The answer to your second question, Council maintains both asset and public liability coverage for the trail network. The costs of insurance are invoiced for the entirety of council operations, so costings for each individual parcel of land is not available. Mountain biking is acknowledged as a dynamic activity that involves inherent risk for participants with no international or Australian standards that can be applied to mountain bike infrastructure. Riders on all mountain bike facilities across the country understand the risks they are accepting.
May I make it 2 comments? One is that borrowing costs are not interest, and interest is reducing per annum. So the first year's cost would be in excess of 300,000, I'd imagine.
Okay.
And in relation to the insurance, any bulk insurance always has an allocation for a particular activity. My own experience is any business has sections right throughout their premium, and why can't that be shown as part of this to give the true costs of a particular project?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Question 5 is from Heather Mutimer. And that's in person, so Heather.
Thank you. Can I just ask a procedural matter first? You still take supplementary questions if don't do that anymore?
No.
Right. My first question tonight relates to the leasing of these premises, and there does not appear to be any payments shown in the income statement for the period ended the 31st of March 2025 for rent or lease expenditure for the council offices at 24 Vincent Street, not that I could find anyway. So my question is, how much is the monthly rent and where is it shown in the income statement I refer to?
Okay, well, the answer to that is the monthly rent is commercial in confidence information, given the commercial arrangements. The figure is allocated to the materials and services line items. Now, question 6, since you're on your feet.
I want to ask supplementary.
Heather?
I'll send it to you in an email if that's all right.
Yeah.
That's okay.
So my second question relates to the Town Hall Hub project. At the May 2024 ordinary meeting of council, a motion was passed which awarded a contract to K20 Architecture for the amount of $146,848, exclusive of GST, for the undertaking of stage 1 of the Daylesford Community Facilities Project, which we also refer to as the Daylesford Town Hall Hub project. The officer's report in those minutes states that the project is to be delivered across 3 stages. Stage 1, feasibility and schematic design. Stage 2, detailed design. And stage 3, construction administration. The delivery of stages 2 and 3 are subject to both the outcome of stage 1 and future project funding. The anticipated cost to deliver the entire contract, including construction stage involvement, will be in the order of $715,000, excluding GST. And the report also states that, quote, stage 1 of the project is being delivered with the endorsed 2023-2024 budget allocation of $160,000, excluding GST, and it will draw on the proposed 2024-2025 budget allocation, end of quote. I understand that the 2024-2025 budget allocation is $300,000. According to the latest financials, as the 31st of March 2025, 109,873 has been spent to date, with a full year forecast of 209,000. It is unclear to me if the forecast expenditure is all for stage 1, being the feasibility and schematic design stage. My question is, has council already entered into an arrangement with the architect to proceed with stage 2 of the project, that is the detailed design stage?
Thank you. No, council has not entered into a contract arrangement for stage 2 works. Stage 1 works for the project are progressing well with the support of community-based project advisory group. This includes the feasibility and schematic design. Stage 2, detailed design, will be subject to confirming funding arrangements and council approval to proceed. Yeah.
Next question is from Jeff Millett. Ratepayers acknowledge that the Daylesford Town Hall is a valuable community asset. However, in council's current foreseeable financial climate, it makes little sense to be spending big and making financial decisions about a project that is many years away at best, a project without the necessary funding. How has it been decided within the councillor group this project is more important than our roads being fixed, while ratepayers are about to be slugged with a 10% increase and loss of other important services?
Okay, well, Mr. Millett's not here, so the response is that council has not decided the project is more important than roads and continues with significant investment in roads. Such a project would require many stages. These include, but are not limited to, architectural advice on the suitability of the site, community input, feasibility designs, concept designs, detailed designs, and of course, funding. Greater detail is available on our website, Daylesford Community Facilities, under Participate Hepburn. Thank you. Question 2, 8.
8, also from Jeff Millett. The Mayor of Hobsons Bay Council has called on the Attorney General for the Rex report to be fully released for complete transparency. What measures and or requests has our Mayor undertaken in recent times to ensure that the people of Hepburn can finally read the full LGI Rex report?
Okay, and the council has on multiple occasions requested the timely release of a report. We have subsequently written to the local government inspectorate to request the release of the report and an investigation into how a draft confidential report was leaked. Please see more details on our media statement, leaked report on the Hepburn Hub at the Rex Project, Hepburn Shire Council. So question 9 is from Ms. Carolyn Whitehead in person.
Oh, actually, I wanted the CEO to read it out.
Can do that. It's regarding the on-site wastewater management plan. On the agenda for tonight's council meeting, my question relates to the fact that, to my knowledge, I've been paying close attention on the topic. There's been no community engagement on the topic. Even if this topic was evaluated as low on council's community engagement policy engagement matrix, at a minimum, council could have communicated this plan via council Facebook page, newsletters, emails, letters, or phone calls. Does council accept that in presenting a finalised policy for approval before engaging with the community, it risks undermining its own community engagement policy?
Right, well, the answer to that is council's on-site wastewater management plan is an operational document designed to replace an outdated local law and outdated plan. It was developed with a specific regulatory compliance framework, aligning statutory obligations under the Environment Protection Act 2017 and associated regulations. The wastewater management plan supports council's decision-making for on-site wastewater management systems compliance within the Shire. All compliance decisions are made in accordance with statutory obligations, other agency guidance and formal referral to agencies. Council officers incorporated feedback from public agencies from the EPA, DECA and water authorities. Within the regulatory framework, any concerns about wastewater can be raised as an objection to a planning permit, including the availability to challenge any council decision to BCAT, the appeal process through VCAT is available to both permit and applicants and objectors. Given its operational nature and limited discretionary content, the plan was correctly assessed and appropriately classified as a low impact matter under the Council's community engagement policy. Should Council resolve to adopt the plan tonight, Council will communicate Council's decision to the Hepburn Shire community in accordance with the community engagement policy. So question 10 is also from Darren.
So page 2 of the on-site wastewater management plan says authorisation occurred on the 27th of November 2024 on Torres Director Development and Community and myself as CEO. And there is no signature. Can you please confirm that these two executives signed off on this new plan?
Yes, I can confirm the operational plan has gone through the necessary approvals from the executive leadership team. Question 11 is from Mr. Benny Pedersen.
Hello, good evening, Mayor, councillors and everyone else. Why has council not disclosed the changes to the CEO's delegated authority for loan borrowings as noted in the May 2024 council minutes, despite the 2023-24 financial statements not being released?
Right, well, the answer to that, there was no change made to the CEO's overall delegation in relation to loan borrowings. Under the instrument of delegation from council to the CEO, bracket section 5, available on council's website, the power to approve the borrowing of money is not delegated and requires a resolution of council. The council resolution at the 21st of May 2024 confidential council meeting allowed the CEO to take out a single loan of 5.887 million over 10 years. This amount was included in the 2023-24 budget. The repayment of this loan is reported in the quarterly financial statements under borrowings. Question 12, Mr. Pedersen.
So in light of council's decisions to disable public comments on its official Facebook page and the unexplained deletion of public posts initiated by councillors following respectful community engagement, what specific policies or protocols does council have in place to prevent the selective removal or suppression of public dialogue on both official and council operated platforms? And furthermore, why was the policy of moderated comments not pursued as a less extreme and more democratic alternative to complete shutdown?
The decision is in line with council's communication and social media policy, which states that council reserves the right to turn off comments on posts. The decision was made to protect the health and safety and staff and councillors, given the inappropriate nature of many comments, and had become operationally unwieldy to have monitor and remove. We have decided to not allow any comments so as not to discriminate against any particular person. Any individual councillor Facebook pages are established and monitored by councillors themselves. So question 13 is from Deborah Semple.
In the mandated requirement for a land capability assessment or LCA in the on-site wastewater management plan, I cannot see where water table depth is factored in. If this is the case, how will this plan ensure septic tanks of any kind of water or any kind of water purification system are not placed in locations with high water tables?
The on-site water management plan requires LCA of any new system. Page 69 of the plan details this mandatory requirement. Each application must include a detailed LCA that is prepared by a qualified land capability assessor. The assessors look at the key site conditions, including soil, slope, water and water table depth. The groundwater is a site feature that must be thoroughly assessed. This ensures that high risk associated with high water tables or other limiting site conditions are properly identified, addressed and managed before any systems are approved. If groundwater is too close to the surface, the qualified assessor will report and council officers will not approve a septic system unless it is safe and suitable. And question 14.
Does this on-site wastewater management plan direct council to discourage growth on land with a high water table where there is no reticulated sewage?
Council's approach is to ensure that any development on land without reticulated sewer is managed to protect public health and the environment with appropriate safeguards in place. Every application and site is unique and needs to be assessed on its own individual merits. The mandatory requirement is for a site-specific land capability assessment, and that we refer to page 69 of the plan, ensures proper consideration of potential site constraints. The assessment process also includes a water authority review and an environmental health officer review. If the assessment shows a high water table or other insurmountable site constraints making the site unsuitable for septic systems, development will not be approved. Yeah, that brings us to the end of our questions. So councillors, we now move on to 8.1, on-site water management plan 2025-29.
Mr. Mayor,
Director of Development and Communities, Mr. Ron Torres.
Mr. Mayor, I
Sorry,
had some questions. Why weren't they allowed?
sorry, but we don't take questions from the gallery. Thank you. But that's
Yesterday.
part of our governance rules. We're running this in accordance with the governance rules, and that doesn't allow us to do that.
But further to that, Mayor, the questions were submitted, but they were deemed not appropriate for the council meeting, and you've been informed of that.
I was not informed of it. I've had no notification of it.
All right. Okay. I'll proceed. The on-site wastewater management plan 2025-29, Director of Development Community, Mr. Ron Torres.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. Councillors, this is an important document that is being put before you. It's a significant document in that it assists all decision makers in terms of domestic wastewater applications. So those decision makers could be council officers or water authorities. It's a purely operational document that strictly follows the statutory requirements under the Environment Protection Act and associated regulations, and is guided by the input of our water authorities, DECA and the EPA. In fact, in preparing this on-site wastewater management plan, council collaborated on no less than 10 comprehensive workshops to obtain their feedback and develop this plan. And since late last year, when it was endorsed by senior management, it has been welcomed by all those authorities in terms of providing clarity and thorough risk management in decision making. So the community is probably wondering why this operational plan is being put before council, because it has been in operation since late last year and effectively used by all decision makers. And the reason for that, councillors, is that in April, right now, our local law number 3, which oversees domestic wastewater, expires after 10 years. And it was considered prudent by officers to present this to council, this operational plan to council for endorsement to I guess, respond to any questions from the water authorities or other agencies such as VCAT on the status of council's wastewater plan. So council endorsement is a formal process that will carry weight, particularly in forums such as VCAT, and that will, in effect, fill the gap of the expired local law. So that's why it's being presented today, despite it effectively operating since late last year. Thank you, Mayor Henderson.
Councillors, are there any questions? Councillor Hewitt?
Yes, Mr. Torres, you've heard from Ms. Whitehead, who says that she understands the main purpose is to relax the 1 to 40 hectare rule and to give councils greater flexibility across the state in this, and that's based on the idea that council has a good idea of risk. Ms. Whitehead has argued that, in her view, the document doesn't give a good idea of risk. Could you respond to that or answer that, please?
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Hewitt. I think evidence of that is the way our water authorities are responding to the plan and using it and embracing it. I must say that the 1 to 40 hectare density rule for dwellings is primarily a construct of water authorities in general across Victoria. I say that it's a risk management tool used by water authorities, which in my layperson's terms says that a water authority considers that a single dwelling on a 40 hectare lot poses minimal, if not negligible, risk to groundwater in the Shire. Anything less than that needs significantly more scrutiny. It doesn't mean it's refused. It just needs greater scrutiny and greater evidence to demonstrate that that land is capable, a smaller parcel of land is capable to accommodate the risks associated with a dwelling and its wastewater. So that means that a water that is applied, that threshold density for councils that do not have an on-site wastewater plan, councils that do not have a strong evidence base that their shire or council is nuanced in terms of development and the conditions across that shire have different risk profiles. The on-site wastewater management plan provides that. And it provides that assurance to various other authorities that we have thoroughly assessed the risks across our shire, our townships, our settlements, and it is appropriate to consider smaller lots. It doesn't mean they'll receive approval, Councillor Hewitt. It just means it enables them to have greater consideration for those lots, as we refer every planning application to the Water Authority. Now, I will add, and I've spoken for a bit, but I will add that I do acknowledge that there are errors in the document. That is true. These editorial or typographical errors and some labelling errors I consider are not material to the effectiveness and intent of this plan, and I suggest they should be corrected before publication and for absolute clarity.
Councillor Clark?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Torres.
Councillor Bryant.
Thank you. And just before I begin, in relation, I have two questions for you. The first in relation to Ms. Whitehead's assertion around the data quality in some of the tables, if you might be able to speak to that. And the second question, just to get clarity, and you did mention that you had had significant consultation with the water authorities. What was, and I just want to confirm, have they reviewed the policy and what was their view on the document itself?
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. Councillor Clark. Yes, this document was prepared in consultation with the water authorities. They have been exposed to the drafts and provided comments, and we've incorporated their comments. In terms of the data, I believe the plan contains a section of where we obtain the data, together with data obtained from various agencies.
You're comfortable the data is accurate?
Absolutely.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Bryant?
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, following on some of the other comments around the 1 to 40 hectare changes. I too have some concerns about the way it's worded in the document. It's a little bit ambivalent and it could be seen to be misleading. I'm wondering on what basis, one, that the land capability assessments can actually replace that process, which is what I believe is what happens now or through this, that in the cases of an area like Glen Lyon, for instance, where this report highlights the high risk to that area of concentrated wastewater systems, that a change of this nature will actually securely protect those sorts of areas, because it won't become at the discretion of a particular officer at that point.
Through the Mayor, thank you, Councillor Dryly. The density threshold does not mean refusal. It does not stop development. It's simply part of a regulatory decision-making framework for applications. And page 69 of the plan actually details the requirements for a land capability assessment. That was asked in a public question. And what that means is, with every application across the Shire, and I say across the Shire because the entire Shire is covered in a special water catchment, supply catchment, every application needs to demonstrate its suitability and capability to accommodate a dwelling and its wastewater requirements. And that's done through the land capability assessment. Now, the good thing about Hepburn Shire Council is many years ago, it codified the special water supply catchment situation through overlay controls, and councillors will be familiar with the environmental significance overlays. That covers the entire Shire and creates a trigger and a framework for comprehensively assessing dwelling applications.
The other councillor, Councillor Cornish.
Yes, Mayor, it's just a general question about the consultation. Although this is an operational document and there are legislative requirements, sometimes it does restrict certain types of consultation with community because there's not a lot of wriggle room. But why wasn't the community consulted or even made aware of this issue through our various avenues that it was coming up to council, so they could prepare themselves and maybe ask a few questions and maybe get some more detailed responses?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Cornish. I'll start by saying that this plan is a product of properly abiding by Council's community engagement policy. So it was determined that given its legislative, specialised operational nature, that this didn't require wider community consultation, but it absolutely did require public agency engagement and consultation. That's as a result of the very specialised nature of this decision-making plan.
Okay, that's the only question really for me.
Anyone else, councillor? Yes, Councillor Clark and then Councillor Dry.
Just a very, very quick one. Should this not be? What are the implications if this is not this policy is not or plan is not approved today?
Thank you, Councillor Clark. This plan actually is in operation, but as part of my introduction, I said the benefit of endorsing this plan today is that it will provide clarity for our water authorities on the status of the plan and provide clarity to VCAT should applications be appealed on the status of council's on-site wastewater management sort of objectives and plans.
Okay.
Councillor Dry.
Two final questions. One is responding to one of the questions from the floor. In terms of the matrix that was used for this assessment for community engagement, there was reference to the fact that it could have been communicated ahead of time in different formats. And perhaps why that wasn't done, given that, and this is leading to the second part of my question, some of the quite significant results I would suggest that have come out from this report, and I'm wondering if you could expand on what you know, some of the risk factors and the overarching sort of impacts that this report has suggested around wastewater management, the importance of that in this shire.
Thank you, Councillor Dryly. This is essentially a risk management plan for on-site wastewater. And I think I consider, and I put to councillors, that the existence of and preparation of this plan really reduces council's risk, the shire's risk, in terms of harming its environment. So it's actually of benefit to reduce risk. And I say that because the outgoing plan was based on now superseded legislation and previous practices. So this brings Hepburn Shire's approach to on-site wastewater to modern standards, to current legislation, and to the requirements of our water authorities. In terms of consultation, as I explained to Councillor Cornish, this plan satisfies Council's engagement policy. And as part of that approach, the inform approach under that policy, Council will publish this corrected version and inform the wider community and other public agencies of Council's decision.
Just follow up. Just to follow up on the wider impacts of this report, I'm just trying to get to the heart of what this has presented in our situation in Hepburn Shire. If we were to compare other shires in terms of our risk profile, it seems to me that there's a lot of red in this document around the high risk of water contamination. Can you give us sort of an assessment of that?
I can't speak for other shires, but we do have a high risk, Councillor Dryly. Our entire shire is in a special water catchment, and that's why we have planning controls to try to protect that. So this plan really responds to those high risks, and particularly identifies specific areas within our shire with high risk. And that is an excellent alert for any decision maker of the inherent risks and how to best either address them or make a decision around them. This plan does not result in approval of everything. In fact, in many cases, some things might be refused or very onerous conditions applied to them.
Anyone else? I just might ask a question. Mr. Torrens, are you aware that this council actually was one of the first councils to introduce a wastewater management plan? Personally, one of the rural councils.
I was not aware of that.
And I can assure you that that's the case, because the government actually gave some funding to the shire up in the high country, and it was taking far too long to get that done. And so the council undertook itself years ago to do this so that we would have some surety and some protection. So that's something that council was to be aware of. We were at the forefront doing that, and it arose out of the Central Highlands Water versus Simpson. If you remember, where we actually couldn't issue planning permits for quite some time because we didn't have a plan.
Well,
so anyway, that's just for council's information. All right, Councillor Cornish, you.
Just a final question, if I may. I've always been interested in the WSUD, or the Water Sensitive Urban Design Guidelines that came in a few years ago. With those guidelines, which are incorporated, I'm not sure actually if they're incorporated in the present planning schemes or whether they've been removed. But if they're still there, how would that WSUD guidelines be affected by the changes in this policy, because they're both treating environmental issues, stormwater and lots of other things. So they're sort of connecting.
Yeah, Henderson, Councillor Cornish is testing my planning knowledge now. But they are two distinct fields in the planning scheme, and they can operate independently of each other, although they are related. They do relate to water. My knowledge of water sensitive urban design is mainly from an urban context, an apartment context. And in those instances, it was around the discharge of water from a site into into that council's drainage system and that sort of thing. I don't think there are any detrimental implications of this plan on water sensitive urban design. They can live together happily on a site and in a development.
Yeah. Any further? Any further? No?
Bruce wants to say something.
Mr. Lucas, clarification.
Thank you, Mayor. Not clarification, but just to add to what Mr. Torres has actually said. So the management of stormwater is dealt with separately to wastewater. So the water sensitive urban design principles that you refer to are captured within what we call the infrastructure design manual. So water sensitive urban design might not be explicit in the planning scheme, but it is a consideration within infrastructure design principles when engineers are assessing development applications and placing engineering conditions on permits.
Thanks. All right, councillors, if we're done, I've got a motion before you. One, that council notes that council has statutory responsibilities to manage and use the installation of on-site wastewater management systems, and that council plays a key role in addressing potential risk to public health and the environment that result from treatment and disposal of wastewater. 2, notes the expiry of local law number 3, operation and maintenance of on-site wastewater treatment systems. That's April 2015, and that the state regulatory framework around on-site wastewater management has significantly changed with the introduction of the updates to the EPA Act 2017 and the new provision known as the General Environmental Duty, GED for short. This is new regulatory framework removes the need for continuation of a separate local law. And 3, adopts the on-site wastewater management plan 2025-29, seen as you can see in your attachment 1. I'm looking for a mover.
I'm happy to move it.
First, Councillor Hockey. We got a seconder?
I'd be happy to second it, Councillor Hockey, if you had a point 4, which was to include publicising it authorises the CEO to make administrative updates to the on-site wastewater management plan as required. Would you?
Absolutely, yep. Happy to move that motion as Councillor Hewitt has outlined.
Well, seconded, Councillor Hewitt. Any discussion, councillors? Any debate?
Just to note that we have had substantive briefings on this matter and have spent a lot of time reading the document, and I agree. I think the substantive content is correct.
Councillor Hewitt.
Just to say that in my previous term of council and now, I know that we are a high risk sensitive water area, and that there have been many examples of planning permits that have come to our attention where there hasn't been clarity or there hasn't been guidelines that have enabled this to be properly considered. I note that there have been changes to the Act, the statutory environment, and anything, and I take comfort in your assurance that this has been working effectively since November 2024, and so therefore I think that this is an improvement on what we had previous support.
Any other councillor wish to speak? Councillor Cornish.
I've done a bit of work like all of us have on this, and of course listening to our residents. Firstly, I'd like to say that the community engagement policy does need to be looked at. I don't believe that and I think councillor Clark in our discussions mentioned this too. I don't think it's the criteria for low, medium or high is detailed enough. And also there's got to be something about in here, in that document about community appetite and how much this will affect the broader community, you know. Yeah. So this is a statutory operational plan, which and it is a report making decisions relating to wastewater treatment and management, as I see it. The updated changes in legislation and regulations that govern on-site wastewater do have potential problems and risks. And the risk-based approach, which considers the management of existing OWMS in, I need my glasses, in unsewered areas. The risks may have an impact on public health and environment as well. So by endorsing this plan or supporting this plan, I'm satisfied that the public health and environmental health risks may be reduced. But I suppose if it did go out to consultation, there may have been an opportunity for a possible planning scheme amendment. In my view, I could be wrong, but I think that's where the wriggle room would be, rather than the document itself, because this is a statutory operational plan. So that's all I have.
Thank you, councillor. Any other councillor? No other. Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, I'd just like to thank committee members for their input into this over the last few days, and noting concerns of other councillors around the engagement that's has or has not happened in this case, and that I do share some concerns that it could have been better communicated earlier in the process, given the length of time that this plan has been in development. And there's, I think, a certain amount of respect that goes with that in terms of our ongoing commitment to community engagement and the and our own engagement matrix and the way that we apply that. And I'd be certainly would be keen to also review how we're actually going in that space. Obviously, this is a very important document, and highlighted with the high risk that we see in this shire, and the importance of our security of our water systems, and it's fundamental, given the changing nature of our climate, that we do that as well, and particularly in a year where we've seen very dry conditions and drought conditions appearing, that this matter is taken very seriously, and this report highlights the risks to our water systems, and I'm glad that we are addressing it in this way. But I still have concerns about the impacts of higher density development and the relaxing of that, which appears to be coming through in this document. And we've seen even our last term that there was a reluctance from water authorities to really clamp down in this area, where it seemed, coming from a large proportion of the community, that there were high risks associated with those decisions, and yet we were being asked to consider it, that everything was just fine. Whereas this document actually quite pinpoints those risks. This is high risk areas that we need to be incredibly careful with, and I would be very keen to see that our officers maintain that high level of scrutiny and diligence, and we are being offered that here tonight. And I think that's really important to acknowledge, that the work that you're doing and the commitment you're making. But that, again, as Councillor Cornish has pointed out, this has a lot of impact for our community. This is a high impact document, and I think that needs to be should be considered in that way.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Any other councillor? Councillor Hood.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. At the risk of being repetitive, I too am happy to support the adoption of the plan, given the strength and merits of the plan itself. But like others, so on balance, I'm happy to endorse the adoption of it. But I do note that there are, again, opportunities perhaps that have been missed where council could have either engaged or communicated somewhat better, which is a bit of a shame because I think the plan itself is technically sound, as Mr. Torres has outlined, and will be put to good use. But there could have been an opportunity to either engaged with the community or communicated to them a bit more proactively and at an earlier stage. And I think it's important in whatever we do that communication is always in mind. So I think it's very technically sound, but there might have been a bit of a missed opportunity here.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. Any other councillor? All right, with no other councillor going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Okay, so we've got Councillor Clark for, Councillor Hood, Councillor Cornish, Councillor Hockey, Councillor Henderson and Councillor Hewitt, and against Councillor Dryling. All right, we'll now move to our next item, which is 8.2. Quarterly Finance Report, Quarter 3, Director Performance and Transformation, and to introduce this, Councillor Hockey.
Thank you, Mayor. Our 2025 Quarterly Finance Report outlines the financial results for the 9 months ending 31st of March 2025, along with a comparison to the amended budget adopted by Council, inclusive of carry forwards from 23-24 to complete projects. It includes a summary of Council's financial performance and position for the 24-25 financial year up until 31st of March 25, and an update on each special and capital project as at 31st of March 2024. The financial position overall is materially on track to the amended budget, with no major items for concern in the current financial year. Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Right, councillors, we've got an executive summary there. Any questions? Councillor Hood?
Thank you, Mayor. I've got 3 questions, if I may. Firstly, the income statement discloses that there's a favourable variance to budget after 9 months, and 2/3 of that variance is explained by a fairly significant underspend on a number of operating costs. My question is that underspend on operating costs going to translate into savings, or is it simply a timing issue in that costs haven't yet been incurred and they will be incurred in the 3 months leading up to 30 June?
Thomas?
Yeah, I can take that one through you, man. So the vast majority of them are timing issues, which is to be expected in local government, with a lot of planning going on in the first sort of half of the year and a lot of construction in the second half, and it is the same between operational projects and capital projects. There will be some operational savings, and that's been really clear as we've worked hard as an organisation in this constrained financial environment to see what we could save. A few of the major items in terms of expenditure on some of our IT work, there'll certainly be hopefully some savings in our waste contracts as well as we work through different operational opportunities. Any of the projects that are sort of operational in nature, that if they're not completed by 30th of June would be going through a carry forward process with councillors post year end, but the vast majority are on track for 30th of June completion.
Yep, thank you. Second question is on capital works. The schedule indicates that council has spent $1.5 million on its road network in the first 9 months of the year, and that's against a full year budget of 3.6 million, 1.5 against 3.6. My question is, will the capital works budget on roads be fully expended by 30 June?
Short answer is no. the longer answer in terms of there's some works that will need to be carried forward by 30th of June, which we've already come to council in terms of some of our change to works associated with moving from Chanters Lane across the Dean Newland Road. And we do have some savings through the roads project. So significant amount of road construction work well underway and happens in the summer months in the first sort of quarter. And I expect to see some further expenditure as we move through into the April. So effectively, the majority of roads projects will be well and truly completed, and if required, as I said, there'll be some savings and some carry forwards, as we were well aware of when we worked through that change as well. It's very pleasing also to see as we put together the 25-26 budget, we've had some announcements in terms of additional road funding for other tiers of government. So funding will be in the road space particularly able to be greater into the 25-26 year as well.
Another question, councillors.
Yes, I do have a third question, if I may, and it's on the schedule of projects. And I'm referring to the Daylesford Town Hall Stage 1 works, which is the electrical works and the new roof. Is that project proceeding to budget and time? And is there an estimation on when the facility will become available to the public again?
Thank you, Mayor, Councillor Hood, and through you, Mayor. The works are progressing on budget. There have been a number of small or minor variations through the repair or the remediation works that have been undertaken, but the project is contained within budget, comfortably within budget. And the current works are progressing, and as I said, will be completed on time. And stage 2 of that project is the electrical rewiring of the facility, and that is on track for delivery in the second half of this calendar year. And we expect that to be wrapped up around late December. And we're currently scoping that to take advantage of potential upgrades that might be required through the upgrade of the facility that's been planned for as a separate project. So if we need to install a lift in a certain location that's coming through the concept designs and the feasibility work that's currently underway, we'll try and embrace that with the rewiring that caters for that in anticipation. So there's a convergence, if you like, of the two projects to some extent, and we would anticipate the hall being available to community again in early 2026.
As per schedule.
As per schedule.
March 26 as per schedule.
Okay. Councillor Hood.
Thanks. Thank you.
Any other councillor? Right, there's no other questions. We have a motion before. The council notes the financial position and performance for the next 9 months. For the 9 months ending 31st of March 2025, including the special and capital projects. And 2, approves the forecast adjustments to the 2024-25 amended budget, noting the favourable cash position as detailed in the report. Councillors, I'm looking for motion. A mover. Move Councillor Clark. Seconder. Seconded Councillor Hood. Councillor Clark, do you wish to speak?
No comments.
Councillor Hood.
Just a comment, Mayor, that as we've heard tonight, both operationally and in terms of capital works, there's still quite a bit of work to be done in the remaining 3 months. That's not unusual in itself, though. That's pretty typical. In terms of the reference to the cash balance being favourable, that's technically correct. It's slightly favourable to budget, but it's still very minor, and the cash flow outlook for council is still very constrained, and one that will continue to need careful attention going forward.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Well, if no one else wishes to speak, I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? I'll declare that carried unanimously. Okay, we'll now move to the draft councillor integrity policy and internal resolution procedures, Director of Performance and Transformation, and that's introduced by Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, on the 25th of June 2024, the Local Government Amendment Governance and Integrity Act 2024 was given royal assent, and in that included a model councillor code of conduct. It came into force on the 26th of October 2024, and that superseded the former Hepburn Shire Councillor Code of Conduct. There was a requirement for councils to adopt an internal resolution procedure that can be followed by us to manage alleged breaches of the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. And this councillor integrity policy does include the internal resolution procedure that gives additional guidance to us regarding our roles and responsibilities, and carries forward additional standards which were included in the superseded Code of Conduct. We've got the internal resolution procedures, but this document has also added sections that are not mandated, but in relation to confidential information and social media. There's also a section in the policy that relates to land use planning interactions with applicants, objectors and other parties. It's worth saying that the procedures in this policy, Part 7, have been developed based on legal advice and advice from Local Government Victoria.
Thank you. Any good questions, councillors? No questions? Yeah, Councillor Dry.
Question to Mr. Thomas, just around the social media policy, and maybe just, I think it's sometimes confusing for the community to understand when we can't speak on particular issues online. So I'm just, and when we're wearing a councillor hat or when we might not be wearing a councillor hat. Could you just maybe just briefly state how this policy addresses those sort of thorny sort of issues for councillors?
Yeah, happy to, and please correct me, Ms. Smith, if anything's accurate. I think what I'd be fair to say is that councillors are always a councillor, and part of the changes to the Act, and particularly this policy, has made that really clear. So in the past, when maybe a councillor was commenting, there could have been, and a number of councillors have found themselves in trouble for inappropriate, not at this council, talking more generally around inappropriate comments about certain issues, and their defence has been, oh, that wasn't in my councillor capacity. The legislation in this policy makes that clearly that any of your comments, you're always a councillor. Where I think also you're referring to is it's important that councillors can speak openly about the topics that it might be up for debate or items. But it's also important that once a council decision has been made, that councillor has a duty in terms of the council endorsed percentage. So what we would say to councillors is adhere to social media rules of the community and make it clear when you might be making a statement as an individual councillor, particularly of something that might not have come to council previously. But once a decision and coming into the councillor chamber, you're free to debate the issue. But post that, there is a council decision that has been made by the majority of councillors, and that is the organisation and council's decision from there. Hopefully that clarifies a number of items.
Maybe just one follow-up. There's changes to the internal mechanisms for councillor complaint resolution. I'm just for the benefit of the community, what are those changes, and what are they meant to represent in terms of an improvement?
Thank you, Councillor Drowley. Through the Mayor. So the intent of these processes is to provide an informal mechanism to resolve things swiftly and through interpersonal discussion. So there's options there like mediation via the Mayor or another councillor. There's direct communication between councillors before having to or feeling the need to take a matter outside of the organisation and refer it to an oversight body for assistance. So that's what these changes are really designed for. They're not necessarily new. This is a concept carries forward from before this particular change to the Local Government Act in October. But we've just carried them forward to further embed them so that we still have those informal mechanisms at place and people are very clear about what those options are before needing to go to lengthier and more expensive options, resolving things outside of the organisation.
Any other councillor? Just a question from me, Mr. Thomas. Thomas, having said that we're bound by a council decision, does a councillor still have the right, where they disagreed with the decision of council, to state that they actually did disagree with that statement while supporting the council decision? They actually disagreed with that.
Through you, Mayor. So of course, and there's been some enhancements, I think, to the way meetings particularly are held now that they're online and recorded. And you'll see through enhancements that we've made to the minutes, we also record the way that councillors vote. And I think that makes it really clear when items do come up 6 months, 6 years, 15 years into the future in terms of a councillor position on an item. So of course, if asked a question, the councillor would be able to say, well, I voted against that, even though that might have been the council decision. I suppose what we're saying is ultimately, once that decision has been made, councillors need to support the decision of the organisation, but absolutely they can articulate to the community how they voted. It's a matter of fact.
Do you have any other councillor? If there's no other questions, I'm going to put it. The council adopts the draft 97C (C) Councillor Integrity Policy. 2, authorises officers to make administrative amendments to the policy in line with legislative changes. And 3, revokes Policy 47 (C) Internal Resolution Procedures, in which has been superseded by the Model Councillor Code of Conduct. I'm looking for a move. Councillor Hewitt.
I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation.
Seconded Councillor Hood. Councillor Hewitt.
Yeah.
Wish to speak?
No.
Councillor Hood.
Just to comment, Mayor, that I think this is a very robust policy. It's a very important one. And in my view, 2 of the sections that are particularly strong and appropriate are 6.7 on land use planning interactions and the adoption of a register to record all of our interactions. I think that protects all parties. And if I recall correctly, that was a recommendation that came out of the Victorian Auditor General at some point. And I think that particularly strengthens the policy. And so too does 6.9, where it actually obligates us to report any issues of potential fraud or corruption or other similar wrongdoing. I think, again, that protects all parties and it makes it explicitly clear that you can't turn a blind eye and that you have got an obligation to report things. So I'm happy to endorse this policy.
Thank you. Any other councillor? Councillor Dryly.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. Yes, likewise, Councillor Hood has mentioned the importance of the integrity aspect of this document for councillors in lots of different ways, and it was an important component of the conference I went to last month with the MAV, that they spoke to ethical leadership at length and integrity and the integrity bodies that are in place to help manage this. And I do respect that this is an initiative process, and this is a potential improvement on that journey to stronger and more ethical alignment in terms of everything that we do as a council and as councillors.
Thank you. Any other councillor? All right. If not, I'm going to the motion that Council 1 receives and notes the report of the operations of council community asset. Hang on. Hang on. Got ahead of myself. I've already read it out. So, sorry about that. 8.3. Just got myself lost in here. Okay. 8.3. All right, so councillors, just to make sure, because I've made a little error there, adopts 97C and council integrity policy and authorises officers to make administrative amendments to the policy in line with legislative changes. And 3, revokes policy 47C, internal resolution procedures, which has been superseded by the model councillor code of conduct. All right, councillors, those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried unanimously. Right, 8.4. CEO annual report. Council on activities and performance of the community asset committees 2024-25. And that's Chief Executive Officer, to be introduced by Councillor Riley.
Thank you, Mayor. Under the Local Government Act 2020, CEO is required to submit a report to Council each year on the activities and performance of Council's 6 community asset committees. The report has been prepared in conjunction with the committees and reflects their achievements over the last 12 months and the challenges they are facing. So I might just mention what committees they are, and that's the Creswick Museum Community Asset Committee, the Dean Recreation Reserve and Tennis Courts Community Asset Committee, the Drummond Hall and Tennis Courts Community Asset Committee, the Glenline Recreation Reserve, the Lee Medland Home of Bottles, and the Lionville Recreation Reserve Community Asset Committee. And I would just pleased that we were able to have them speak to us in person recently, and that some of the concerns that were raised around advocacy and responses have begun to be followed up by officers, and that these committees play a really important role in the fabric of our community, and the passion that they present in terms of their engagement with our assets, community committees overall.
Okay, councillors, any questions? No questions? All right, I'll put it that council, 1, receives and notes the report of the operations of council's community asset committees as required in line with obligations set out in the Local Government Act 2020, and 2, thanks committee members for their efforts and achievements throughout the year. I'm looking for a motion. Councillor Hewitt, moved.
The officer's recommendation.
Councillor Riley seconded. Just beat your councillor. All right, Councillor Hewitt.
Councillors, the reports are straightforward. Just like to add my thanks to the members of the 6 community asset committees for their work that they do on behalf of the community and the Shire. Recognise that it's not necessarily an easy job, but note that that they all do work hard and they're all making the best of those assets in the communities that they represent. So I thank them on behalf of council and the community.
Thank you, Councillor Riley.
Already, just to add that obviously there are challenges with some of these assets. They're aged and need attention, and we don't have a bottomless pit of money to supply. And it's but acknowledge that there is considerable work in terms of fundraising efforts and community activation of those spaces that are really important in terms of empowering the local community to act in their own way to keep fighting the good fight for these sorts of assets.
Is there any other councillor? There's no other councillor. I'll put the motion. It's quite extensive, and so I think you've got it there before you. There we go. So I'll put it. Those in favour? Those against? I'll declare that carried unanimously. Okay. 5 minutes. It's easy to get too excited about getting ahead here. Okay, so these councils are really administrative resolution. So 8.5 is the revision of instruments of delegation from council to the CEO, section 5, and from council to council staff, section 6 and 18, Director of Performance and Transformation. So
Yes, very administrative, mayor and councillors, and no significant changes across both 8.5 and 8.6. A number of administrative updates to legislation, but overall no major or significant changes to delegations proposed.
So councillors, any questions? No questions? All right. It is fairly extensive, so we've got it before us. So there's no questions. I'm going to ask for a mover. Councillor Cornish.
Seconded.
Seconded Councillor Hockey. Councillor Cornish, wish to speak? No. Councillor Hockey?
No.
No. Any other councillor? No. All right, I'm going to put it. Those in favour? Those against? Declare that carried unanimously. Then we move on to 8.6, which will be similar. So 8.6 is an instrument of appointment to authorise officers under the Planning and Environment Act 1987 and Environmental Protection Act 2017. And that's just has been prepared by the Director of Performance and Transformation. Councillors, any questions? No questions? All right, I'm going to put it. Once again, it's before you here, written out as written in the officer's recommendation. So I'm calling for us to take the vote that we have to move a second.
Need a motion.
We need a motion. So who's going to do it?
I'm happy to move the motion.
Councillor Hockey, seconded Councillor Hood. All right. Any discussion? No discussion? All right. I'll put it. Those in favour, those against? They're carried unanimously. Okay. All right.
There's no item 9, Mayor.
No item 9.
Items of urgent business. There are none, so we'll be at item 10.1,
10.
the Mayor's report.
Okay. Mayor's report, which will be relatively, won't be comprehensive, but just a snapshot. At busy times, we're working on all fronts for the 4-year council plan budget, as well as dealing with strategies for 10 years and implementing structure plans for our towns that are long overdue. Recently, Councillor Hewitt and myself joined Minister Mary Ann Thomas to turn on the new lighting at Victoria Park, Daylesford, to ensure proper lighting for football and netball areas. The club and users were appreciative of the state government that has seen benefit to the community in our recreational facilities. Earlier this month, the member for Ripon and myself organised a visit by Police Minister Anthony Carbines to Creswick to discuss policing in our area. The discussion included Clunes and in fact the whole Shire. We were joined by police from Bacchus Marsh headquarters as well. After meeting with some members of the public to hear frustrations and experiences, we met with the local police to discuss what was required. The meeting was very fruitful and the Minister was able to see just what it takes to resource a region such as ours. I will give an update that some measures are already in the pipeline. We also met with Minister Nick Stakos and high on the agenda was the effect of the new emergency services levy on ratepayers and more particularly on our farming community who at this time are experiencing drought conditions. In my view, this system is unworkable and needs to be revisited. We're also able to illustrate the difficulty the small rural shires are facing with rising costs and cost shifting by governments. We have also corresponded with the Treasurer on these matters. Anzac Day this year saw big crowds turn out, and although some of our return service people are now ageing, it was great to see so many younger people and children taking part and appreciating the sacrifices made by those who gave their lives who have suffered lifelong illness and trauma. I was able to attend the dawn service at Creswick, breakfast, later the main service, as well as service at Kingston. The block have been busy around town, and recent visits to plant a new tree in the avenue with Daylesford RSL, and also to the bathroom challenge in celebration of the 130th anniversary of the Hepburn Bathhouse certainly opened my eyes. I noted there were approximately 200 people involved. I was particularly pleased to see local trades and others being employed. Certainly a great and much needed boost to local businesses. We also had a new residents welcome and where we welcome new residents to our Shire. Cresfest was a fantastic event this year, something for everybody, and the town of Creswick and many local venues were showcased. Big credit to the organisers and the volunteers. A particular interest was a visit to St Augustine's Parish School to explain the role of local government to very interested students. I can tell you they asked some pretty curly questions. Some of them even wanted to know if we could get them a TV. I've also taken the time to travel many of our gravel roads to get a first-hand idea of the conditions of the roads and drainage. An election pledge of 1.2 million shared between Creswick and Daylesford soccer clubs was announced by the member for Ballarat, Catherine King. The Liberal candidate cancelled the scheduled meeting. There were no other pledges for our Shire by any other candidates. Thank you. Right. Now we have Councillor Brian Hood. Oh, councillor reports. No, we've got Councillor Pat Hockey, who submitted his report.
I did, but I'm happy to table it as it appears in the agenda. And I only just like to note the wins from Clunes in both the seniors netball and football for the first two rounds, which a surprise to everyone, but let's hope it continues.
Thank you, Councillor Hockey. Councillor Brian Hood.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, look, I'll briefly mention three community events. The first one was the Trentham Easter Art and Craft Show held recently at the Mechanics in Trentham. It was the first show in 5 years, thanks to COVID and some other factors. They had close to 400 entries of very high quality. It was a very successful event and very well staged in the Mechanics Hall at Trentham. Secondly, similar to your comments, Mayor, it was very pleasing to see big crowds at the Anzac Day ceremonies in Trentham and Bellato. The Bellato Hall was full. The streets of Trentham were very well crowded. And once again, the younger generations, particularly through the students of Trentham Primary School, conducted themselves exceptionally well as they read various speeches and contributed overall to the event. All went very well without any interruption and were very dignified occasions. And the third one, of course, is this coming weekend where Trentham's major annual festival of Spudfest spread over the weekend is upcoming, and look forward to all of you being there and seeing you and enjoying a wide range of entertainment and events. It's a very important community event over the coming weekend, well supported by council, of course.
Thank you, Councillor Hood. So now we have Councillor Tony Clark.
I'll take the report as what should be there, take that as read. With the only other comment, just to extend a real and a big acknowledgement for the hundreds and hundreds of people that actively help organise Anzac Day, and the thousands of people that participated in it, and just to again write Councillor Hood's comments about what a great job the kids did. Thank you.
Councillor Clark. Councillor Shirley Cornish.
Thank you, Mayor. Cresfest, I'll speak about that first as being the main event recently. I understand there was over 2,000 tickets sold, ticket holders, and it was their biggest event to date. It's only the 4th year running, and people come from far and wide to attend Cresfest, and it's growing every year, so we're very proud of it. I've also attended many briefings with councillors and officers. We did the new residents welcome in Creswick. There are quite a few residents there. and that's always really enjoyable. And we've been working very hard on the budget and council plan the last few months, and I understand we'll be out for consultation on the 15th of May, all going well. I also chaired the first project advisory group for the Glen Lyon Pavilion, the PAG. So that was our first meeting last week, and hopefully our 4 meetings will conclude in June. So the main basis of our meeting is to identify where a pavilion will go, whether the existing one stays or a new one built. And that's basically it, and I think we will get there in the end. It's a 50 acre site down there in Glen Lyon, and it's all flood prone, so it's quite challenging. And Anzac Day was phenomenal. I did attend the cemetery service and also the Creswick service. There were hundreds of people there, and it was really moving. I don't think I've ever attended a local government Anzac service that attracted so many people. There was a lot there. And school children, there were 3 schools that had a little talk and a say, and that was moving as well. Lovely to see the young kids there. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
That 5 wasn't the phase you off, it was actually 5 schools.
Oh, 5 schools. Oh,
So
I must have fallen asleep somewhere there.
never mind, there were 5 schools.
Thanks.
Okay. Councillor Tim Dry.
Thank you, Mayor. Look, first I do want to acknowledge the release of the Rex report and the fact that we did express regret for the way that the project caused harm for our community, and I'm sorry as well for that. I attended Cresfest, and an amazing event, and a 4th time around. It's bucking the trend of festivals, and it's 2 days or 3 days of music, dance, and celebration for our local community. It's just incredible. I also attended the site visit of the block, and while it's positive to see regions showcased nationally and local trade supported, I think we really must remain focused on addressing affordable housing as a crisis. These high-end developments often risk widening the gap between those who can and cannot afford to live locally. And I'm committed to continuing to advocate for more inclusive affordable housing options that must truly meet community needs. At the governance level, I participated in the meetings with the Essential Services Commission with our rate variation application, and Hepburn is statistically a low rating shire. But I think we need to continue an honest conversation about what it takes to equitably support the diversity of services and community spaces we all rely on. I attended the listening post in Daylesford and was encouraged by those who attended that we need to continue and improve and connect, and listen meaningfully. I also attended the last session of the delivery panel discussion, and I really want to thank those participants for their contribution and look forward to seeing the report, despite the challenges along the way. And I do share the concerns about the loss of over half of the members on that panel and the circumstances leading to it. Rebuilding trust will be critical as we finalise our council plan. I also participated in council plan and strategic planning workshops, a special council meeting and site visits, including the bathhouse renovations, and attended the Western Renewables Link community meeting, and I'm continuing to represent community interest. I'd like to also mention, it is important that we protect staff and councillors from the abuse of vitriol and corrosive comments, mainly by a few. But I do have some concerns about disabling public comments on Facebook. We must remain open to feedback, even when it's challenging, and I find better ways to foster constructive dialogue rather than closing channels of communication. I'm also concerned about the ongoing habitat destruction in places like the Wombat Forest. Several environmental groups have raised the alarm about the loss of critical habitat under so-called storm cleanup operations with little obvious oversight. We must be vigilant in protecting our biodiversity, and more needs to be done.
Right. Yeah. Councillor Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll just put my timer on.
No, I've got one.
Like other councillors, I've been working on the council plan, the council budget, and as Councillor Cornish said, it will, all things being equal, go out for public comment and consultation on the 15th of May. I've also attended the Glenline Recreation Reserve and the Daylesford Town Hall PAG, and both those groups are working to achieve their purpose. In particular, the Daylesford Town Hall Project Advisory Group have spent the last couple of meetings going through the feedback from the community consultation, and you'll hear more about that. I attended 4 Anzac Day services across the Shire: Drummond, Hepburn Springs, Eganstown and Daylesford. And other councillors have already thanked the organisers for those. I'd particularly like to call out the Drummond Hall Committee. It's only the second year that they've organised a service, and well done to them for taking the initiative and attempting to provide something for their community. There was a donkey present, councillors, at that service. I'd also like to call out at the Eganstown service, where there was a changing of the guard. John Menadue and Keith Pires stepped down after 20 years of organising that particular service, and it's pleasing to note that Darren McCall is at the generational change who stepped up. Congratulations and well done also to Lynn Straits and Lee Manning, who continued the tradition of making the Anzac biscuits to feed the group there, and taking over from Carolyn Menadue, who's done a lot of work. Councillors, you will know, although the community won't, that I had the chance to attend, or the required to attend, Daylesford Urgent Care yesterday after a somewhat unfortunate accident here. You will know that I've been the chair of the Daylesford Hospital Community Committee upgrade. I can report that the urgent care staff, the nurse and the doctor, were excellent and managed the 8 people who turned up while I was there for 2 hours very well. However, those facilities are not fit for purpose. I could probably tell you what those 8 people were attending for, not because the staff were breaching confidentiality, but because there's actually no privacy. I had one of only 2 beds available, and other people had to accommodate that. So Councillor Dryly did call out the ageing assets of some of our hall committees. This is an issue that's wider in rural communities than just council facilities, and I just want to make that point. Nothing to do with the staff and the service they provide, but many people, as we know, are often left behind in terms of the resourcing from other levels of government.
Very informative, councillor.
That's probably enough now.
Sit exactly. Thank you. All right. Thank the councillors for all the reports. Okay, I assume we're on 10.3, CEO report. So perhaps we could have a motion to receive the mayor's and councillors' reports before we do that. Have a motion, Councillor Hood, seconded Councillor Cornish. All those in favour? Those against? Declare that carried. Unanimously, Councillor. All right, Chief Executive Officer's report.
Thank you, Mayor. Report included in a number of highlights that councillors have certainly spoken about tonight, so I won't go into so much detail, but I will just provide some clarity and thanks as we move forward into the council plan budget process, given that it has been a significant workload over this last month, but particularly over the last 6 months as well in this new council term. So a particular thanks to councillors and staff who've been involved in multiple workshops as we work through the draft of those documents. It's been touched on that we've had a deliberative panel in place. That has been fantastic and given us fantastic insights right across the organisation and the community. So we're excited to be able to get that input through that council plan, budget and other documents. So thank you particularly to the panel that gave up their time and provided great insight. It's also pleasing to note that we did a community-wide survey and we've got just over 400 responses, which is absolutely fantastic given the size of our community. So I can assure you that those deliberative panel report and insights and the results of those survey will form part of the input into those key documents, and councillors will see them in the coming days as we work through. Special meeting on the 13th of May for council to consider the endorsement of those documents for community consultation. That'll be a meeting where the agenda will be available, but the reports will be embargoed until that night. And that is because community then gets the opportunity to receive and be communicated with those documents over the coming weeks. So the 13th of May, and we'll make sure by the 15th that we've got those documents up there. So I just really wanted to thank so many people that have been involved in that and provide that clarity. I'll take the rest of the report as read there, and there's a recommendation there in your agenda that council receives and notes the Chief Executive Officer's report for May 2025.
Have a mover? Move Councillor Hood. Seconder? Seconded Councillor Clark. All right. No discussion? All right. Those in favour? Those against?
I was in favour.
You're in favour. All right. Declare that carried unanimously, Councillor. All right. We now come to the most important item of the night, the close of the meeting. I'll declare the meeting closed.
7:48.
At 7:48. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Henderson. I'll mute the meeting, stop the stream and end the recording. Thank you.
Let us know when you've completed. Mr. Watt, thank you.
Sure.
We done? Just waiting to get clarification from Mr. White.
It's 9.